So can you make an incredible, juicy, melt-in-your-mouth brisket without the use of a smoker? Today's video is going to answer that question because I'm going to take everything I've learned from the world of smoking and place those techniques on a brisket which is cooked 100% of the way in your oven. And as always, there is no time to waste, my friends. Now let's go! Okay, here we are starting with the untrimmed brisket. First thing we need to do is obviously trim it. So I'm gonna start on the side here and just take off a good portion of this fat right here. I got a little meat there, my bad. And we are gonna save all this fat for later in the recipe, you shall see. I'll just keep working this area a little bit. There we go, right about there. Now start removing some of this big fat cap over here, or whatever it's called. We want to leave about 1/4 inch to 1/3 of an inch of fat all the way around the brisket. So we just keep chopping away at it. Oops, see, I went a little bit too deep there. We try to avoid that, but it's not the end of the world. I even like bending the meat a little bit sometimes like this, so that fat is on a curvature. It makes it a lot easier to slice. Just gonna trim up this section down here. You can see there's a lot of fat right there, right? So we can go ahead and get under that a little bit, like so. Here, that we want the white fat, not this fat that is stained by all the blood, or whatever you call it, meat juices. Flip this around. Look at this floppy thing, right? Just take that off. And I don't like all this. That's a weird fat. That down, all that. You know, when I see this piece right here, it's really thin, and I just feel like it's definitely gonna dry out. It's not part of the mass of the brisket. So I'm gonna take this out, still gonna cook it, it's just not going right there. So let's get all that out, one nice piece. Let's trim this area. Oh yeah, could feel that this was some kind of silver skin area right here, really tough. So we're getting rid of that. Get a little more here, and we'll just trim right here as well. And down here on the flat end. Just gonna lift that from underneath and trim a little, like so. We'll now flip it over. Always good to keep some paper towels here, keep it a little bit dry. Now we have this obviously big piece of fat right here. Take some of that down, clean it up a little bit. The fat is really thick right here, so I'm just gonna keep hacking that down. You can just feel it in there. See all that fat? Go ahead and remove this piece like so. And then obviously we should get rid of this kind of stuff right here. Get all that off, all this kind of stuff. Just scrape that down. And there we go, she's looking pretty good. The only thing I think I messed up a little bit is taking too much fat off right here, but it'll be fine. We're not trying to win any Texas barbecue competitions. We're not even smoking this thing. But I have a master plan, and I think this is gonna be an incredible brisket. Okay, seasoning wise here, I'm gonna go pretty simple with it. First off, my famous homemade rosemary salt. Oh, get on board, my friends. All you do is take some kosher salt, add that to a food processor along with some stripped fresh rosemary leaves, some fresh sage leaves, and then some whole garlic and some lemon zest, and you just blend it up for about a minute. I will post that recipe down in the description for you to enjoy. You should definitely make it. Everybody loves it. And then, of course, a little bit of Sergeant Gilbert reporting for duty. That's a sentient pepper, okay? I just pre-ground him pretty coarse. So that's it, salt and pepper, but rosemary salt and black pepper. And I'm not gonna use any kind of traditional binder here. I'm just putting a little oil. This is just avocado oil, and I'm just spraying it on, and that's just really gonna help the seasoning stick. And so we'll, from a very nice high distance, just begin raining down this rosemary salt here. And be generous when you do this. It's a big, thick piece of meat, so it can really take that seasoning. Of course, our pepper, straight on. You know, aim for the edges when you do this, and you'll get a more even seasoning. Wow, that looks great. Tap it in, flip, and we'll go ahead and do the other side here. I'm gonna make sure to get these edges too. Man, this already looks great. Maybe I'll just dip it up a little bit, and there we have it. Oh, rosemary salt. I'm now gonna set this on a sheet pan lined rack. See if we can make it fit there. There we go. Fat side up. So in my oven here, I have a pan on the bottom rack. I'm just gonna fill that totally with water, create a little steam while this brisket cooks. And now in goes the brisket into a 250 degrees Fahrenheit oven. Celsius temp is right there, and we let it roll. With all my beef trimmings here, I'm definitely not gonna waste these. I'm just gonna cover with water, cold water, just like so. Now we'll set this onto the stove over low heat and let that fat render down so we can use it later in the recipe, as well as just to save it. Because trust me, beef fat or beef tallow is a great thing just to have ready to go. And so what I don't use for the recipe, I will pour into little ice cube trays, freeze, and then bag them up and save them for future recipes. Yorkshire puddings right here in the corner, for instance, absolutely incredible. Or maybe you want to make some tortillas using beef fat, also absolutely incredible. Or just for general cooking, it's oil, it's fat, so use it for whatever you want, but don't throw it away. This thing has been cooking for a couple hours now. It is tough as can be. I'm just gonna insert a probe thermometer into the thickest section right in the middle. You can obviously just do this right when you put it in as well. And so I find when probing something, you wanna go past where you need to be and then pull back just a little bit. Now back into the oven until it hits that brisket stall out point, which we will talk about in a minute. Okay, my beef tallow here has been rendering down all day. So all that water slowly evaporated, and then that beef fat just started kind of rendering down in its own fat. It still has a little bit of a ways to go before I strain it all out and save it, but I just strained some off to get ready to use right now. Okay, my friends, and here is our brisket about 6.5 hours in. It just hit that stall out point between 150 and 165. It's around 160 right now. And so if you don't know what that means, when you're cooking a brisket, somewhere between the 150 and 165 range, it's gonna stall out. It just has a hard time getting past that 150 to 165 region before doing its final climb to 203, 204, where we'll pull it out and continue on to the next step. So we're gonna do the old Texas crutch. We're gonna wrap this thing up in some butcher paper and then into a little foil boat and back into the oven. I just have my butcher paper here. I wish I had a wider one so I could wrap it up like a burrito, but I'm gonna have to do it a little bit weird. Next time I'll get bigger butcher paper. And I'm just brushing this thing with the beef fat. This is a highly debated thing in the barbecue world. I think a lot of the pros would be against doing this. I like the idea of it. Keep this whole thing really moist. My brisket in there, and I'm gonna have to kind of wrap it like this. And then again in some more butcher paper even. Here, I just got some more tallowed paper. I'm just gonna wrap it like this now. There. And now into the little foil boat it goes. Just make sure those edges are nicely up around. So this should be really interesting because we're following the smoking technique. Well, one that a lot of people do anyway, except we're doing it in the oven. And there's our little package ready to go. I got a little extra fat here. I'm just gonna get it on there. Hopefully it'll seep in. You can also pour it right on top of the brisket, but it was pretty fatty already. And here we are. And here we go, probe back in. Just make sure you're getting into that thick end and you're in the middle of the thickest portion. There we go. So at this point, we're gonna return the brisket to the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit until it reaches a temp of 203 or 204. This can take anywhere from 10 to 15 hours depending on the size of your brisket. My brisket here took 12 hours. So once your brisket hits that target temp, we need to remove it from the oven and do a few more tests to make sure it's definitely done. And we do that by poking it with a thermometer a few different places, and what we're looking for here is like 0 resistance. So that thermometer should be poking in like it's going into softened butter, and you want to test this around a few different spots to really make sure it's cooked throughout. You can also do a little bend test by picking the brisket up and giving it a little feel and making sure it has a little bit of floppiness to it. At this point, we should not have a stiff brisket. Now at this point, I will give you the option of just letting it rest down to about 150 degrees before slicing, but I really want to put something to the test, and that is resting the brisket in a warm oven for a long period of time. To do this, all you need to do is let your brisket cool down to around the 160 to 170 range, at which point you want to set your oven to the lowest temperature it will possibly go. For me, that was 175, but I did a little temperature test and it's actually more like 165, which is even better. I kept that pan with water in the oven to create a little humidity and just place the brisket back into rest. Okay, here we go. So that just went for another 12 hours in the warm oven to rest. I then just pulled it out of the oven and let it rest to 150 degrees internal, which I hear is a nice temperature for slicing the meat. On another note, I'm gonna put the directions in a nice little timeline down in the description, so if you wanna follow along and try this at home, just check that out. Now, for God's sake, let's slice into this thing. Honestly, Christmas has got nothing on this. Nothing at all. I'm gonna go surgical with it. Oh, woohoo! Oh boy, hello my friend. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna start up by making a slice right about here, take off that leaner portion. Oh man, cuts like butter. Ooh, drippy drippy, oh my gosh, wow. And now it's time to really get into this fatty section. Whoa, crazy how that sliced. Oh my gosh, yes. Ooh, it's looking good, my friends. That is looking really good. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna take one more slice right here just for fun. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. You see the juice just dripping out of this thing. It just looks so moisturized. Oh my gosh. Yes! It's absolutely glistening. It's glistening. It's got a really nice bend to it. It almost just wants to come apart, which is what I'm gonna do now. Just look at this. Oh my God. Wow, look at that. Oh, oh, oh! Holy smokes. Well, it seems to be really, really nicely cooked. It holds its shape, but it really wants to fall apart when you start messing with it. Let's go in for a taste. This fatty bit. No. Oh my Lord. Oh, oh. I really think this is one of the best pieces of meat I have ever tried in my life, and it's not even smoked. It's all about the technique, man. Oh. Well, incredible success, my friends. It is good to know you can still create an incredible brisket just using your oven. You just need patience. That's literally the only thing you need, patience and a brisket. And you know the deal. Drop a like, leave a comment if you so wish, and turn on notifications if you want to be a psycho. And we're all psychos over here. And until next time, you know I love you and I'm out.